Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pan-African Sanctuary Alliance webinar on primate social groupings. We'll get started in just a moment.
Hey, Jean, did you get a message from Caitlin? She said she's having trouble getting in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she said she just sent you a WhatsApp message. I don't know, maybe she's using the public link instead of the presenters link.
That could be. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, she said she's in the public view.
Okay. Let's see if she's there, and I'll transition her over.
I could share my link with her, but then yeah, you want me to do that?
No, I just promoted her to panelist, so she should be good. Yeah, here she is. Well, hello, everyone. It's
Hi, Kaylin. Nice to see you.
And I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm Jean Fleming from the Pan-African Sanctuary Alliance, PASA, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar on primate social groups. Today we've got a fantastic panel with Alex Benitez from Ape Action Africa, coming to us live from Cameroon. And we've got Caroline Griffiths, who is a primate behavioral specialist, and she works with our members extensively in our primate care training program, and they're both going to tell some great stories and show you how it matters that primates get integrated well so that they can heal from the traumas that they've experienced. Let me share my PowerPoint here and it's going. Oops. I don't think you can see that. I think I have to share my screen first. Seeing how the sausage gets made here. All right, so there's our agenda. We're going to start it off with Greg Tully sharing a little bit about PASA, who we are, what we do, and how our members help protect primates all across Africa. And then he'll set up a little bit of information about primate social groups in general. Caroline will then walk us through how the social groups work and what her work looks like when she comes into a situation where there's a challenge. And then Alex will talk about the use of social groups at the sanctuary level and how he works with the animals and the caregivers to make sure everybody's happy and healthy and healing. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. I'd ask that you enter those into the chat box if you can. We'll be monitoring those and we'll make sure that people have a chance to look at it. And with that,
Jean, I thought I was going to be going after Alex. Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
I'm fine with that, so that's fine for me.
Okay, great. All right. Well, then I'm going to hand it over to Greg and he'll take it from there.
All right. Thank you, Jean. All right. Can you see that splash page?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So, well, thank you all for joining us. I'm excited about this topic. So I know a lot of you are familiar with PASA, but I'll give a quick introduction. The Pan-African Sanctuary Alliance is the biggest association of wildlife centers and sanctuaries in Africa. We now have 23 member organizations in 13 countries that are all working to give a future to Africa's primates and their habitat. PASA was founded in 2000 by the sanctuary directors and founders in Africa. So we're a registered nonprofit in the US now, but it was really created by the African sanctuaries, and that's still very much at the heart of everything we do. and I can't say enough about the people who work at these sanctuaries. They're amazing. Yeah, they're truly leaders in wildlife protection. They have decades of experience rescuing wildlife, negotiating with African governments, collaborating with local communities. And PASA helps to build their capacity through a wide range of programs. We run conferences and trainings. We leverage our networks to benefit our members, sharing resources and other information. And in the big picture, we're fostering a cohesive movement all across Africa to defend Africa's primates. Working, complementing the work on the ground with this more of a broader perspective. And the economic and social impact of the sanctuaries is really important. And I feel like it's often overlooked. We talk a lot about the animals, but also collectively, the PASA members are giving jobs to more than 600 African citizens. Every year, they put more than $6 million into local economies. Their conservation education programs reach more than 500,000 people every year, which I think is incredible. And they run a really diverse conservation programs. This includes training people in alternative livelihoods so they're less likely to resort to illegal hunting or exploiting protected areas, building schools, building health centers, providing access to drinking water, and so much more than that. And even in a really challenging situation like the COVID pandemic, which is still a major threat in Africa, the PASA members are making important contributions to their local communities. I mean, they really have partnerships with these communities. So that was an introduction to PASA. Now let's talk about primates. So like us, most non-human primates are highly social animals. I mean, in fact, a lot of primate species are far more social than humans are. Some of them are just miserable and fail to thrive if they're not in their social groups. Chimpanzees, like the ones in this photo, typically live in groups of, could in the wild, it could be as small as 20 individuals, maybe as many as 120. And interestingly, these groups aren't set in stone. They often sort of break up and reform, and they form subgroups. So it's there's a really detailed social hierarchy. Gorillas usually tend to form smaller groups, maybe as just a few individuals or maybe as many as 30. Bonobos, which are sort of the ape species that far fewer people know about, they have matriarchal social structures where the females actually take the lead, which creates a really interesting contrast to chimps, which are their closest relatives. They also prefer big groups, it could be over 100 individuals with smaller subgroups. And like I said, for all of these, the social groups are extremely important for their well-being. However, illegal hunting and wildlife trafficking disrupt all of this. It really wreaks havoc on their social groups. In many cases, hunters will, if they come across a social group of chimps in the wild, they'll shoot any adults that they can and sell them for meat. And then any babies who they catch that are too small to be killed for meat are sold as illegal pets. And so you can imagine the effect that this has on the social hierarchies. Research has shown that for every ape that's confiscated from poachers, up to 10 of them have been killed or taken from the wild. So, I mean, every year we're seeing shocking numbers of animals confiscated and rescued and coming into sanctuaries, but it could be as many as 10 times that number that are actually being taken out of the wild. And the international wildlife trade has become a huge multi-billion-dollar business. It's one of the biggest illegal trades worldwide. It's ranked number 4 in terms of profits. It includes anything from local trade within Africa, where people keep pets in their, at a hotel to entertain the guests, or at a market tied to a rope, to animals being sent to zoos in China that don't have any standards of care, or ending up in the Middle East in exotic animal collections and elsewhere. And the meat trade is another huge problem that's in Africa, but also all around the world. And all of this is devastating, as I said, to the social groups. So this picture here is one that I took a couple of years ago of a chimp in a cage in Guinea-Bissau. She's been in this cage for more than a decade. I mean, we don't know if has left this cage for years. And we're working really hard right now to get Fifi out and bring her to a sanctuary. This is just one example of the horrible results of wildlife trade. And the emotional trauma of a situation like this on such a social animal is just unthinkable. I mean, there's really, I can't even imagine. But on the bright side, sanctuaries across Africa are giving these animals a second chance. There are excellent staff who are helping the animals overcome their trauma and their injuries and be integrated into social groups. So here's another example. This is Kaza when rescued. Just the body language here shows how miserable this chimp was, and now he's at Ape Action Africa where Alex is, and happier and healthier. So we do have a lot of success stories despite all the despite the tragic side of the work that we do. As Caroline and Alex will say more about, this process can take years. Forming social groups and integrating the animals, it's very complicated. Not every group meshes. It takes some trial and error, but it's absolutely critical for the well-being of the animals. That's all for me. I'll hand it back to Jean.
Great, thank you so much, Greg. And we're going to have a shuffle of the cards here. We're actually going to have Alex go rather than what you saw on the screen. So take it, Alex.
Thank you very much. It's the first time I'm doing a webinar, so I think I can just start, right? Everyone is hearing me. Everyone is seeing.
Yes.
So let me share this. Everyone can see that image, just the logo of Ape Action Africa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi to everyone. I hope all of you are good and ready to enjoy this webinar. Before starting, I would like to thank PASA team for this opportunity of talking in this webinar. Also to Caroline for her amazing job. I can't wait to hear you. And of course, to all of you to be here with us to learn a bit more about primate conservation. I would like also to apologize because I'm in the forest at the moment. So the connection, it can be a bit poor. So I'm sorry if that disturbs a bit. And also if there is some noise in the background, I will try my best. As Greg said and Jean said, I'm Alex. I'm the manager at Ape Action Africa. And for those who doesn't know us, we are a British NGO based in Cameroon since 1996. And our main goal is to rescue, rehabilitate, and give a second chance to all that primates that are being victims of the illegal wildlife trafficking and the bushmeat trade, as Greg was saying. At the moment, we are home to nearly 300 primates, including chimpanzees, gorillas, mandrill baboons, and other species of monkeys. As I said, we rescue and we rehabilitate primates. And talking a bit more about rehabilitation is a really long, difficult, and complex process that sadly a lot of our animals that arrive to the sanctuary needs to go through. And this process normally starts as soon as they arrive to the sanctuary, when they are already in their quarantine period. It's in this moment when we start treating and healing the wounds, the physical wounds they have, and probable some diseases. And also we start observing them and knowing them to see if they have any psychological damage to be treated. Once that quarantine is finished and the animal is healthy and good conditions, we go to the next step of the rehabilitation, that is the integration of the new arrival into stable groups of the sanctuary. And I'm gonna focus on this step of the rehabilitation, that is the integration. The integration is a step that is really important for the primates. As Greg was saying, primates are social animals, that they live in groups and communities, and they have a really complex social structure and hierarchy. And a primate that is isolated, as the case we were seeing before, they can get really bad and irreversible traumas that can develop in stereotypical behaviors or even self-mutilation behaviors. So the integration for them into stable groups are really important for their rehabilitation. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain you the integrations step by step using one of our latest integrations here in Ape Action Africa. But before, I would like to let everyone know that all the integration are completely different between each other. So we could say there is no protocols or rules that we can follow strictly in integration. All will depend on the individuals, the reaction, the atmosphere, and then it will be the individuals that are involved on the integration who will decide the speed and the steps of the integration. The only thing we could apply to all the integration is that the person that is managing that integration needs to be really patient, needs to be a good observer, just to don't skip any detail on the behaviors, and always having in mind which kind of risk we can have just to avoid them or minimize the chances of that risk. And always before starting an integration, you should study and know the behavior and the ecology of the species that you are working, just to know their vocalization, their body language, so you can understand them and read them and then know if the integration is going good or is going not that good. But also, and I think it's more important, you need to know really well the personality of the individual that you are integrating, and also the personality and the dynamics of the group that you are integrating in. It's good when you know who is the dominant male or the female, who is more open and friendly, who can be aggressive, and all that will help you a lot during the integration. Before starting talking about the integration, that I said I will use an example, I would like just to introduce you to the individuals that were involved in the integration. So I will set up the scene for you so you can understand better. This integration I'm gonna use as an example is the integration of two baby chimps into an adult group. One of these baby chimps is Florence. She arrived when she was only 8 months old, and the minister confiscated from the hands of the poacher that killed the family and was trying to sell her as a pet. And she arrived in that wooden crate that you can see on the picture. When she arrived, she was really tiny and still clumsy, so she spent mostly all the time in the arms of the caregivers, as you can see on the picture. But she developed really well. She grew up. She was really friendly with everyone, but she has a really quiet, shy and independent character. At the moment, she is 3 years old, and you can see her on the picture in the bottom, in the middle, how much she has grown up and how different she looks now with the dark skin. And the other baby that it was involved in this integration, it was Friday. Sorry, Florence is a girl. Friday is a boy. Friday arrived when he was only 1 year old, and we don't know much about his background. Someone dropped him at the zoo in town, and we went there to collect him. What we knew is that he was really humanized. He was really friendly and open to meet the caregivers and the rest of the people, so that means he was always with people. He was in good conditions, quite chunky even, so that means they were feeding him. And something that is really normal in this kind of arrivals, he had a really big wounds around the hips, which meant that he was attached with a rope or a chain. So with all this information, we can guess that he was being a pet somewhere. He's also 3 years old now, and you can see him in the picture in the top left. He hasn't changed much as Florence. He's still quite clear and with the same face. And we decided to integrate them in Song's group. Song groups is our youngest group of chimpanzees. The dominant male that is Song is only 16 years old, and he's the eldest one in the group. And also is one of our smallest group with only 15 individuals. 15, sorry. And well, we choose this group because it's a group that is really calm, really stable. All the members of the group has really good bonds between them. and also they never had babies. So we wanted to add, to expand their age range and vary a bit their dynamic as a group, just to make it more similar to a wild group of chimpanzees. As I said, they never had babies before, so this was really exciting for us, but at the same time, it was worrying it a little bit because we didn't know how the females will react to the babies or how much desire they will have to be moms, but we have a lot of hopes on the females because we know them really well. So that's why we choose this group. And now that you know more or less the individuals that were involved in the integration, I'm gonna start explaining step by step, more or less. As I said, it depends a lot on the integration. The integration starts still when the new arrival is still on the quarantine period. That time is a good time for us to meet that primate and then know their personality. And knowing their personality and knowing the personality and the dynamics of the groups that we have in the sanctuary, we can choose which group we think the new arrival will fit better. So in this case, as I explained, we choose Song's group because that characteristic I said. And then we pass to the next step, that is the presentation. In every integration, the first step is always the same one, and is present the new arrival to the group, but in the distance, so they cannot grab each other, so we avoid the fights, but they can already smell each other, talk between them and see each other. And in this step, you can get already a lot of information about future steps in the integration, like who is showing some aggression, or who is being friendly, who is even getting some interest, or who doesn't care and goes away. So in our case, as you see on the picture of the top, we needed the help of the caregivers for this step, because for the babies, it was the first time they were seeing adult chimps that close, as they arrived when they were still babies. And they were a bit scared. Also, it was a new area for them. So being with the caregiver was relaxing them, and they were calmer. And with the time, they got enough confidence just to come down of the arms of the caregivers and then chill around the room. And with the time, as you can see on the other pictures, they were getting quite interested in the group. The one you can see there is Florence staring at the group. And also you can see that the group is there staring at the babies. So this was already giving us really good information. And as we expected and we wanted, almost all the females were there waiting, looking at them from the enclosure. So after a couple of days of habituation of the babies to the new room and to the presence of the chimps, of the adult chimps, we decided to pass to the next step of the integration. That is what we can call next to each other. This is a video. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have good connection to show the video. So I will try later. Anyway, let me explain a bit this step. Next step after the presentation in the distance comes the time to choose one member of the group and put it next to the new arrivals in different rooms, separated by a panel with small holes where they can pass already the fingers, but they cannot pass the full arm. So in case there is a fight, we avoid big wounds. Normally, we always do this step with only one member of the group, mostly because if you put more members of the group at the same time, they can just spend time playing between them and ignoring the new arrival, or even because they are friends, they could pack and then try to fight with the new arrival. So any of that option is not good for the integration. So it's always good to just bring one of them to start. In this case, we choose Vicky. Vicky is the alpha female in this group. And we choose her because we have hope on her being a good mom. She's a really lovely chimp. She's a bit rough sometimes, but she's quite loved by all the group. But the most important thing, this is why we choose her, is because she's the alpha female, as I said. And when we're talking about babies arriving to a group where there were no babies before, the females get really, really excited, and they can even arrive to fight for the babies. So by giving the chance to the alpha female to get the babies, the other females, they respect her and they won't fight her for the babies. So we make sure the babies will be safe. And that was the main reason of choosing Vicky. And well, as soon as we put Vicky next to the babies, she was really happy and really excited, and she was showing this excitement by banging and screaming at the panels. As I said, she's quite rough. So of course the babies were panicking all the time. But with the time she understood that, and then she started getting calm and just sitting next to the fence and waiting for the babies to approach. I don't know if you can see the video, if it's playing. But on the video, you can see Vicky just banging at the fence and the babies running away in the rooms. Can you see? It's reproducing.
It is playing. It skips a bit, but it's playing.
Okay. If not, after Jean can help me maybe, and we can put some of the videos. Anyway, as I was saying, Vicky understood that she was scaring the babies, and then she calmed down and she just sat next to the fence, allowing the babies to approach. So the babies just got much more confident. And then during the next days, they were approaching more to Vicky and getting more comfortable with her. The problem we saw in this step, it was like that Vicky was getting a bit frustrated of not being able to have contact with the babies. So she started to be a bit more aggressive, banging stronger and displaying. So we decided to go to the next step a bit earlier than we thought. But as I said at the beginning, during the integration are the individuals involved, the ones that decide the steps and the speed. So we decided to go to the next step, that is the first and full contact. So after being next to each other, if you have been seeing good interaction between the new arrival and the member of the group, like playing and grooming and good vocalizations, etc., you can go ahead, open the door and put them together. In this step, you need to have in mind already that there are some chances of fight. So you need to be always aware, and you need to have tools to avoid this or to stop the fight. In our cases, we always use sliding doors or even water if we need to stop a fight or separate them. But I would like to point out that fights are not always something negative. As we were talking at the beginning, primates have a really complex social structure, and to decide who is where in the ranking, they use the fights just to decide yes, the ranking, who is first, who is second, etc. So fights are not always bad. Sometimes it's even needed. In our case, as you can see on the pictures, that was not the case. There was no fight at all. And as soon as we put Vicky with the babies, everything went really well. I'm gonna start playing these videos. Let's see if they play. So as I was saying, as soon as we opened the door, Vicky went straight for the babies, really happy. Of course, the babies panic again and ran away. But Vicky is bigger and is faster than them, so she managed to grab Friday first. But in the same second that she got Friday understood that Vicky just wanted to love him and cuddle him. So he let himself be in love, and he started playing with Vicky. After some minutes with Friday, Vicky did the same with Florence. As I said before, Florence is much more shyer and quiet than Friday, so she was always keeping distances. But again, Vicky is faster and bigger, so she managed to grab her. But as you can see in the videos, I'm not sure if you are able to see, is all the time Vicky playing with Friday, but on the video of the right, you can see that Florence ending also joining the game. So this step with Vicky went really well and really smooth. She got the role of man really quick. And after a couple of days, they were really settled with her and really calm. So we decided to go to the next step, that is meeting the other members of the group. In this step, we just go adding one by one the other members. And in our case, we kept Vicky all the time with the babies inside, because she was the maternal figure for the babies. So in case of the babies were scared or they were feeling endangered, they could always use Vicky as a protection. So we decided to start with the females, and we decided to start with the best friends of Vicky, as we hope that she will be more happy sharing the babies with them. And it was as we expected, and every female that was coming inside with the babies, they were loving the babies and hugging them and playing, always under the look of Vicky, as she was there ready to stop them if they were getting too rough with the babies. Or even sometimes she was getting jealous if the babies were paying too attention to the new female, and she was just going, taking the babies and going a bit further. But really there was no problem at all. All the females were accepting the babies really, really good. And always they were following the same pattern. All of them were choosing Friday, the first one, and Florence later. Of course, we think it's because the personality of the babies. As I said, Friday is much more open and friendly and playful, and Florence is shyer and more independent. But one hypothesis we have, if you remember a bit the pictures, Friday has still clear skin, while Florence is already dark. And in chimpanzees, normally clear color means they're still babies. That is the way for the adults to recognize babies. So we think that could call more the attention of the females about Friday. Anyway, they love both the same at the end. And well, after the females, once they met everyone, we started with the males. This step is a bit more scary just because males are stronger and a bit more aggressive. So you need to be a bit more carefully with this. But again, we didn't have any problem at all with this step of the integration. We started with Mac and David, that they are ones of the more playful males in the group, and everything went really, really well. Even now Mac, that is the one you can see on the bottom right picture. At the moment, he's the best playmate for the babies. So it went really, really well. And then the rest of the males, like Sean, that is the dominant male, there is not much to say about. The males, they didn't interact much with the babies, but at this point, it was good enough for us because the rest of the group accepted them and loved them. And it was good enough for us to pass to the next step of the integration, that is the last one already, that is the release into the enclosure. As I said, this is the last step of the integration, and is once that they have met all the group, or mostly all the group, they're ready to go out with them. Just before this step, you need to be sure they have had enough time in the rooms to bond properly, just to make sure the risk of a fight in the enclosure is going to be the minimum possible, as once they're in the enclosure, if there is a fight, it's going to be quite difficult or almost impossible to stop that fight. So is the only rule or only thing that you need to have in mind before. In our case, everyone bonded really, really well, so that we didn't have any any doubt about this. So we went ahead and we released the babies with the group. As you can see in this video, that I hope is playing, and if not, after I can try if Jim can help me with the videos. In this video, you can see how all of them are going out with the babies, really, really excited, screaming, and well, displaying in a good way, hugging between each other, and then taking the babies for a walk around the forest. And you can see also that the babies are really excited of being outside in a new forest area with the family. So during the day, they spend the full day at the enclosure with all the people, with all the other chimps. And as you can see on the pictures, they were just part of the group, as if they have been part of the group since. They were just joining the group in all the activities like foraging, climbing trees, chilling on the ground, just like one more in the group. So it was really, really good. The babies never got scared or anything being in a new area. They were really comfortable with the group. As you can see on the picture, they love to be carried by the individuals of the group. Even doesn't matter if they're males in any way, as you can see Friday on the bottom picture. And then again, I have a video here. Hopefully you can see. If not, we can try to play it later. On the video, you can see just this chilling moment of the group on the ground where everyone is together around, everyone is chilling, resting, grooming each other, playing. And you can see in the middle is Friday and Florence just being part of it. Florence is on the right with Kira being groomed by her, and Friday is on the left playing with Mac. And this was the first day, so it went so smooth and so good. We were really happy. We could see them happy with no problem, no tensions. On this next video, hopefully you can see because it's really nice to see, is Mac playing with Friday. That, as I said, Mac has become the best playmate for them, even if it's a bit rough. That you will see on the video, he's just throwing him on the air really strong and high, stretching his arm, but he loves it. He doesn't mind. He's really enjoying being with the other ones. So today we can say that Friday and Florence integration went really well and was completely successful. And they are just part of the family now. And you can see by this example that the integration is quite complex. You need to be patient and you need to have quite a lot of time sometimes, but it's really well for the primates because it's the way to give them a second chance and a second family after all the trauma they normally pass before arriving to the sanctuary. So that's the integration, and normally that is the happy end of the integrations. I hope you like it, and that's all from me. Thank you very much. I would like just to add, if you think you couldn't see the videos, maybe Jean can help me to put some of them.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen and get into the videos. And Alex, I think I'm going to show that last one since that's just so incredibly adorable. Get out of here. Get all of that nonsense out of there.
So this one is the video of Mac playing with Friday. I cannot see really good. I'm not sure if it's my connection or it's for everyone.
That is so charming, that one. Is there another one you'd like to make sure everybody sees, Alex? I can make sure that we see that.
I would like just the one that goes before that one, that is just all the group chilling with the babies, is pretty nice as well.
Okay, coming right up. There we go.
So I can hear, so I'm assuming is playing. And in the video you can see what I was saying. It's just the group chilling, just grooming and playing between them, and you can see that Friday and Florence are just being part of them, like if they have been always with the group. So it's really nice and sweet to see.
Fortunately, the video is too slow on our end, but maybe we can post it afterward.
There we go. Well, thank you, Alex, so much. That is great. And we will,
Thanks
as
to you,
Caitlin
and thank you
mentioned,
for trying the videos.
We can share the videos to a YouTube channel or something. We'll figure out a way to get those up so that people can see them. They really are quite wonderful and very illustrative of everything Alex shared with us. And so with that, we'll ask Caroline to share her experiences working with a number of different sanctuaries and animals. So take it, Caroline.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, trying to share screen. Okay, everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to go after Alex because I wanted to talk about my experiences with a few cases where, you know, some behavioral intervention was needed before the primate was ready to be integrated. And we find that every once in a while. Certainly most of them have experienced trauma prior to their arrival to the sanctuary, but some can adapt a bit quicker, cope a bit better than others. But we want to make sure that we give everyone a chance to live, every primate a chance to live socially, since it is so important for the process of rehabilitation and just offering them as natural a life as possible. But it can be particularly challenging for some individuals that perhaps show a lack of interest in social interaction. They maybe self-isolate, maybe become withdrawn because of what they've gone through. Or it could be that, you know, they seek attention from humans because they were, you know, owned as a pet and weren't around other primates of their kind. We also sometimes see a lack of social skills if they just haven't had the experience or the opportunity to develop those skills and how to relate to other primates. And again, those that have, you know, been kept as pets, for them, it's particularly challenging as well. And then abnormal behavior, I put that there because certainly it's definitely not a major hindrance to being able to integrate successfully. And certainly it's not unexpected, you know, to see some abnormal behaviors every once in a while in a social group. Perhaps, you know, plucking out their own hair, eating feces, maybe pacing. We might see pacing in anticipation of a meal at mealtime. Things like that are just to be expected and not really a cause for concern. It's just when the issue is excessive, for example, hair plucking to the point of becoming nearly bald, or if they choose to spend their time exhibiting that behavior in place of interacting socially, then it's certainly a cause for concern. So the first case I want to talk about is Sandy from Ape Action Africa, when I was last there about 2 years ago. And this was not immediately prior to an integration. She was living with a baby group at the time. I believe there were 5 in that group, and they were taken care of by, on any given day, 2 to 3 human caregivers. Every day they would be taken out into the forest to play and just learn how to become chimps and climb and grow. And then at night they would stay together in a safe, you know, a satellite cage. The issue with Sandy was that she was exhibiting this abnormal behavior, the stereotypic behavior that was kind of like rocking, but she would fall on the ground. She would drop to the ground and sort of bob up and down her torso. And we noticed that she would be very withdrawn. It was like an automatic response. And she would fall into it and do it perhaps at moments that she didn't really know what to do. And that was her coping mechanism. So certainly we wanted to try and help address that and see if we could reduce it to where she could, you know, gain some confidence and enjoy more social interaction with the other babies that would help set her up for, you know, success later in a social group. So this is a video of her rocking. It's extremely short, and I think with the video probably being herky-jerky, I don't know if you were able to see that at all. Were you able to see that? I can play it again. Greg, were you able to see that?
Yeah, it was choppy, but we could see it.
Okay, great. Okay. So just to give you an idea of what that looked like. So, you know, during the day, certainly the human caregivers are there to give the babies comfort and affection, attention and reassurance. And they do this for all of the babies. They sort of act as, surrogate moms. They would receive this kind of care from their chimp moms, had they been able to stay with them. But the one sort of allowance we made, for Sandy was just making sure that, especially if there were just 2 caregivers there that day, but certainly with 3, it was someone always keeping an eye on Sandy, just to try and keep her engaged, keep her active and busy, or resting, that's fine too, but to try and prevent her from exhibiting that stereotypic behavior. And then if they did see her doing it, to try and just pull her out of it, engage her, distract her, comfort her. And so, yeah, they kind of watched out for that specifically. And then, again, as part of the baby group, they learn to groom each other and play, and this, the caregivers start out, grooming them and playing with them, but then they in turn learn how to do that with the other babies, and they learn these skills, and how to behave appropriately with other chimps. And they also learn to explore their environment, to show an interest in the leaves and the trees and all of the things around them, as they would in the wild. But for Sandy, we noticed that she really didn't climb much. She was very unsteady, and we wanted to give her the opportunity to gain some confidence and grow and gain some independence. And so, just these are pictures showing, her level of trust, having our trust, and then allowing us to just introduce her to something like, hanging onto a branch, where on the left hand side, you can see her little foot is clinging to my leg. And then she's with a caregiver here in the middle, top, and still kind of holding on to her a little bit, swinging, but and then the picture, it's not super clear to the right, but because it was taken from a video, but you can see another chimp in the baby group climbing up higher, certainly. But for Sandy, who's on the lower limb there, this was great because she had moved a bit away from her caregiver, and she wasn't grabbing onto her at all. She was hanging. She was only doing this while I was there for a short period of time, but it was wonderful to see this improvement in these steps and just her gaining confidence. And then the bottom there, you see her playing. And so we were able to see her just blooming and spending more of her time sort of interacting socially, or just resting, like a normal baby chimp, and doing that abnormal behavior, a bit less. And I think this helped with just giving her sort of the coping skills. And I'm happy to say that not too long ago, she was integrated into the sort of pre-nursery young, little baby chimp group. So she does seem to be doing well. The next case I want to talk to you about is a bonobo named Kipolo, who was an adult when I went to Lolaya Bonobo in fall of 2018. And, as Alex described, the integrations are, they're challenging, but it's a bit easier for the youngsters to be readily accepted into a group. It's definitely more challenging for adults. And in bonobo society, where males are lower ranking and a new male to the group is going to be the lowest, ranking, it's particularly challenging. So I was asked to sort of help integrate him into a large group of 22 bonobos. To give you a bit of background, he had arrived at the sanctuary at the age of 6, so we don't know what he experienced prior to that point. He definitely wasn't a little baby at that point, and he was in and out of social groups. He had a health issue that unfortunately caused him to be removed from the group for about a year, and so it was very hard for him, I think, to then reintegrate. He was also just extremely aggressive. He didn't demonstrate good social skills. And then gradually it turned into more of a behavior of avoidance. And he started isolating himself and just doing some abnormal behavior. You can see from the picture there some, hair plucking, and just choosing to sort of be alone and be withdrawn. And that was definitely a cause for concern because we know bonobos are social. And the extra sort of concern here in this situation is that Lola does reintroductions of groups of bonobos into the wild, into a protected park. And if he does not join a social group, he's not going to have that ability. So the upper left-hand corner, that shows the sort of nice forest enclosure that he was living in. They allowed him to just kind of stay by himself, and he had been by himself at that point for several years. And he seemed content that way. And when they had tried to socialize him with others, he would sometimes jump the fence, escape to get away. And then the upper right-hand photo just shows the group that, part of the group and their nice big space, and that he was meant to join. So we did the integration in the night caging, and it's called night caging because, they only go in there at night to sleep. But we decided to keep them in there during the day so that he couldn't just escape an enclosure to avoid the opportunities to have social interaction. And also the neighboring group could become jealous if they saw members, certain individuals with him, and they could jump the fence and perhaps cause a fight. So that definitely was cause for concern. So we decided it would be safe to go about doing it inside. And then also they had access to all of the cages, all of the doors were open. But so they had plenty of space, but still not the space that they would have in the forest. And so it kind of increased the chances that, he was going to interact with them socially. We provided a lot of enrichment. If you know anything about chimp integrations, they very often will not give any enrichment because it can cause competition and fighting. But with the bonobos, the idea was that it caused excitement, and that excitement could lead to interaction in the form of the sociosexual behavior that bonobos display and sort of help strengthen a bond. So you see the picture of a female. She's actually the dominant female in the group. And she loved that ball. And so she just played with that ball, and she chose to stay in almost every day. Because what we did was we gave bonobos, the individuals in the group that we wanted to integrate Capolo into, the choice to stay inside. We certainly didn't want to. Sometimes it was, certain ones we had in mind that we were going to try, and if we could separate them when the group went out, we would do it. But if anyone was really distressed and didn't want to be in, we certainly didn't want this to be a negative experience for them at all. So we just let them out. So it was really by choice every day that we would have at least a couple of individuals kind of staying with Capolo. And like I said, that dominant female chose to stay in almost every day. So the enrichment definitely was very helpful. And so you just see pictures here of, Capolo playing with a young infant, a 2-year-old infant. And this was great to see because I understand from his history that he was very aggressive towards infants and bonobos that were smaller than him in the past. So this was really encouraging to see. And then you see them eating together and playing, and him being groomed by the dominant female, which was really encouraging. And then you see the sociosexual behavior, which was, excitement. They had just received a new type of enrichment. They were very excited. So these were all behaviors we were really happy to see. I'm going to show you a video. I'm sorry if the quality isn't great, but it's just an example of how it looked when Capolo was inside. And he's the larger guy on the left, and he's with a very small adult female here. So he's interested in her, he's following around, he's definitely showing interest in social interaction. And that leads to some play. That's one of the managers. Good, that's what we like to see. So he definitely formed a great relationship with this particular female, and he was really building relationships. Unfortunately, we had a setback and had to stop the integration right about the time I was set to leave. I had about a month with them, and it's unfortunate, and that does happen sometimes, that perhaps this group wasn't the right match for him and that he would be better suited in a different group. So yeah, unfortunately, in this case, it wasn't ultimately successful, but we learned two really important things. And that was one, his behavior had changed over time in that he was showing interest in social interaction. He definitely was. And he was displaying very good social skills. So we considered that very encouraging, because prior to this integration attempt, it was really doubtful whether he wanted to be with other bonobos and if he knew how to behave appropriately. And this exercise here, fortunately, proved that, showed that. So I'm going to move on to my last case here, which is Ezoye, a adult gorilla. My first visit to PGFB in Gabon was in 2017. And the director had asked me to come because this silverback was solitary and had been for several years and seemed to be in a constant state of agitation, and they didn't know why. And he made frequent escape attempts, but he also was successful a few times, and that was scary for the staff. He didn't venture very far. They weren't sure what was motivating him. Socially speaking, in his past, he had lived with two other males, and one was around a juvenile and the other was an adult. Unfortunately, they passed away in 2013 and 2014. But what I was told was he could be very aggressive towards them. So he definitely wasn't showing some very good social skills when he was living with them. And then there was an accidental integration with a female gorilla from the other group that had just 3 gorillas, 1 male and 2 females, where they accidentally got together. And the staff decided, well, let's see, because they had had so much positive interaction from, 2 sides of a fence. It was, let's leave them together and see what happens. And unfortunately, he was very aggressive with her, and he actually prevented her from eating. So the staff monitored, day and night, and decided on, by the morning of day 3, this was not good for her welfare. And so they needed to separate them. So the goals of my first visit really were to just try and figure out why Zoya was agitated, why he was trying to escape, try and just address, his behavioral issues before he would even be ready to be a candidate for another, integration. So, and we wanted to just increase his range of natural behaviors. We wanted to see him doing what, gorillas would be doing in the wild. And hoping that by, implementing a program that would make him a little more calm and content, perhaps that would eliminate the desire to escape. We also did a little desensitization to the presence of management, because I noticed, and I was told this, but I got to see it for myself, that the 2 different managers, when they would come by, he would definitely become extremely agitated and charge a lot. And that was no good, because the managers need to be able to visit frequently and make sure that it doesn't upset the animals, and they're able to see what the usual behavior is and have a good relationship with them. So that was one of the things we did as well. So mainly, PGFB didn't have an enrichment program. They every once in a while gave an item for enrichment, but we sort of increased the variety of what was offered to them, and we put it on a schedule. So you can see in the lower right, it's just a small picture of sort of the schedule we came up with, where the staff wanted it very specific, laid out for them. So it was every day what types of enrichment they were to be given. And I say they because we also enriched the group of 3 gorillas. But just speaking about Azoya, it was what he was to be given and what time every day. And that involved increasing the amount of browse, leaves, stems, things like that you can see, because certainly gorillas in the wild eat a lot of browse. but also trying to bring out natural behaviors like foraging for food. So offering different types of feeders, puzzle feeders and whatnot. Just even simply offering forage by throwing, seeds or beans over the fence and scattering them, allowing him that to take his time, because it was all about keeping him busy, so that he would be less agitated, he would be more content, and to exhibit those sort of natural behaviors. The other part of that was adding human interaction visits done by the care staff. And they need a little bit of guidance as to, how these interaction visits were to be conducted. And it was just kind of a, when you're interacting with gorillas, it's avoiding the eye contact and keeping a calm demeanor and perhaps low voice, and just visiting, just walking along the fence line with him, which he often chose to accompany the care staff when they would do their daily tours of the whole enclosure, walking around the enclosure. He would often walk with them. But we also learned that he, when running again, playing a game of chase, that he seemed to enjoy that. So that was a fun thing for the staff to do as well. Now, I did make sure, because I observed, I did nothing but observe pretty much. I think I had 6 weeks there during that trip, and I took the whole first week just to observe what they normally did before implementing anything like the enrichment, the human interaction visits. So I didn't observe sort of any interaction at all, any sort of talking to the gorillas by the staff. And so I did check with the director and make sure that there wasn't a policy against it. Is there certainly some places may promote, limiting human interaction. In this case, it certainly wasn't against the policy. The director was very much in support of it. And really, I would not have suggested that for the group of 3 gorillas, because they have each other, but it was because Ezoya was by himself that I thought it would really be beneficial for the care staff to be sort of surrogate gorillas, to sort of help fill that void, and offering him some social interaction. And that's really a type of enrichment too, social enrichment. So the second visit, the first was the summer of 2017, then again the summer of 2018, was really great because we had a year to sort of reflect and say, you know what, he hadn't made any escape attempts since that prior visit. He had become calmer. He was using his enrichment, and we thought, okay, maybe he will display sort of, more positive behavior if we give him another chance at integration. And that was always the goal. We felt like during that second visit, he was probably ready. And so the integration with this female here, she was a 21-year-old female at the time named Tawny. She is the female that accidentally got in with him a few years prior, and it didn't go well because there was just the sanctuary is very small, and there's just the other group of 3. It was, we didn't have many choices. It was, let's try and give Tawny another chance and Ezoya a chance at having a social life. So there were planning and logistics that went into it. It wasn't just sort of start putting them together. It was, the director was definitely in favor of me just surveying the sanctuary staff to find out how they felt about it, because we were going to ask them to carry it out and monitor and put in a lot of extra time and work. And, so how did they feel? And we wanted to make sure they were in support of it. And they wanted to see Ezoya have a social companion. And they did feel that Tawny would thrive there. Tawny had become a little bit problematic in her other group, sort of stealing food and being a bit naughty with the other 2 gorillas she was living with. So she definitely had confidence and personality, and we thought maybe it would be beneficial to sort of put her in a different environment. And they were in favor of it. And that was so important, to have the staff buy-in before conducting it. And then, of course, as a safety measure, during the different stages of the integration, sanctuary tours for visitors were suspended. They always have to, be concerned about the possibility of an escape occurring. There's definitely a better chance of an escape occurring during times of high stress and excitement. And that's what an integration can involve. So the cage and the enclosure doors were reinforced, and any repairs were done where needed, because certainly the caging gorillas are super strong. And so there was an issue with one of the doors. And so they just reinforced everything to kind of, discourage or decrease the chance that that an escape could happen. But just in case, anesthetic equipment was prepared. A dart gun was prepared and set aside. The proper amounts were in a dosage were drawn up, and it was prepared and ready to go for the morning of when we put them together in full contact. We had that just as a precaution. And certainly, and also the night before, we held a meeting, staff meeting, just to make sure everybody knew what their role would be the next day, and that how we would carry out actually putting Tawny in with Ezoye, who would be where, who would be doing what, and responsible for what. That was definitely important to set, to set out, the day before. Okay, so just to kind of go through this quickly, these stages, because they're very similar to, how you might see this done in other integrations, and how, Alex talked about the integration between the babies and songs group is, at first you want to just give them visual contact, and that's what we did. They could see each other, but they couldn't touch each other. So there was no, threat of danger. And definitely the gorillas showed interest in one another. They positioned themselves where they could watch each other better. Ezoye had his whole enclosure, but could kind of only see her best from the cage. And so he would go into the cage just to look at her. He occasionally, showed some dominance displays. That's totally normal. And they didn't phase Tawny. So it was a good sign. And we kept it, that was about 3 days. And we were only doing about half days because we didn't want them to become, we didn't want it to be tiresome. So yeah, and because it required extra monitoring for the staff as well. So phase 2 was what we call protected contact, because it's physical contact, but the physical contact is limited. So no major, wounding or harm can be done. They can touch each other, but just through the small squares of the cage mesh. And this was a total of 7 days, but we split it up. We thought at first, we let Tawny go into this corridor and walk up to where Ezoye's cage was, and they could touch each other if they wanted to through that cage mesh. And that lasted about 2 days. And then we moved into the second phase, kept that going for about 5 days. And that was where Ezoye no longer had access to his cage. He was just in his enclosure, and Tawny got access to his cage and was in there, and they were socializing still through the mesh. But this was interesting. This was very important to determine, to make sure that he wasn't so, territorial over his cage, that he would be upset or bothered by the fact that Tawny was in there. And no, we just saw, during both A and B of phase 2, we saw just affiliative behavior and no aggression whatsoever. So this was looking very promising. So then it was about, after 11 days, we went to integration phase 3, full contact, for an indefinite period of time, where we had Tawny join Ezoye in his enclosure, no protective barriers between them. And what we had seen such, encouraging behavior in the previous phases, we were very hopeful. But I have to say, upon the first meeting, Ezoye did attack her, and it was quite scary for the staff. And certainly Tawny screamed a lot. But at the end of the day, she had very few and very superficial wounds. Certainly she was upset, but this was a sort of fighting that needed to be worked out. So it wasn't something that we said, oh, this isn't going to work. It was, okay, let's keep an eye on them. We want to make sure that Tawny is able to eat, and that she's safe, and that both are thriving. But we know it's going to take them time to actually develop, a friendly relationship. We can expect that. So we were very encouraged to see whenever Ezoye chased Tawny or started to sort of attack or threaten her, many times she defended herself. She hadn't done that in their previous integration. She was definitely spunky, and sometimes defended herself to the point where we saw Ezoye back up and back away. And that was a great sign too, like, okay, she can hold her own. They both were able to eat. And certainly for several days, a couple of members of sanctuary staff stayed overnight camp. Just someone was always there just to make sure that if there was a problem or an issue, they could spring into action right away. So after the integration, here, one second. Basically, Ezoye was very interested in interacting with Tawny, and he would pursue her. But when he would actually contact her, he was quite rough. He still needed to learn, and it took him time to learn to be a little more gentle and not to kind of scare her away, to be too rough. He definitely has tried to mate with her, and she hasn't shown interest yet, but he's learning sort of how to be more gentle. But the fact that he was interested and he wasn't super aggressive, he wasn't trying to hurt her anymore, you know. But Tawny sort of avoided him for a while because, of course, you know, based on their early history, that she had reason to be concerned. So it really did develop gradually. We totally expected this. And gradually the nature of the interactions improved. I can say that the following year in 2019, I went and, you know, we still thought, well, they're living peacefully together, but they're not really very affiliative. They're not interacting a lot. So we took measures at that point to try and just improve the relationship even more, and just took measures to sort of make sure that we were feeding them within eyesight of each other, but far enough away that he wouldn't get jealous of her eating, and coordinating these activities. And gradually, as they were being fed, we brought them closer together, and this sort of helped too. And but a lot of it was time. And, you know, I'm happy to say now that they're getting along quite well. I mean, they're not playing all the time, but they're getting along well, living together. And then there are periods of time where they just play for a while. And so, of course, you know, just that is beneficial to both of them. So we were very happy to see that this has been successful. And so I just want to wrap it up with a video here, which was taken from a distance by care staff because, you know, they took this through the fence. But Ezoye is on the left, Tawny's on the right. And if it's a little herky-jerky, I can just describe it. He's kind of following her, just walking after her. She's walking away just nonchalantly. They had a moment where here she starts to run playfully, and then she comes back to him. So we had seen a lot of avoidance where she would walk away and keep walking away or run away. Now it was like she was running playfully and she ran back to him. And now they're actually wrestling and playing. And this was so wonderful. I wasn't there when this happened. I think this might have been a month after I left. But I was so happy to see this. We keep track of, you know, we keep in touch on WhatsApp, the sanctuary staff, with the updates about the gorillas, and they sent along this video. So, and that was really encouraging. And just, it's been wonderful. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but when it doesn't work, you know, we try again, maybe with a different group or a different individual. Even if it's just one individual, it's still offering them a chance to live socially, which is so important. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating. We do have one question, so I'd love to hear folks' thoughts on this. This is from Francisco. Is a good long-term relationship maintained between the newcomer and the individual with whom he interacts first? Or may they not get along very well later on? Are there any patterns that you might expect in that situation? And I think either Caroline or Alex might want to respond to that.
Alex, I don't know, you might be better suited to answer this.
Thank you. Well, really nice, Caroline. Let me take the chance to tell you, I like it a lot. About the question, depends, as we were talking, each integration is completely different, so depends a lot. In the case of Friday and Florence, the one I was talking, yes, they continue with that good long-term relationship with Vicky, because they took her as the mom already. So that relationship continue and is the best one at the moment. Other times, mostly with adults, you just choose the one that you think is gonna be the best one to start, but maybe the fifth one that you try is the one that makes the good relationship with the new arrival. And then that can keep changing. Even after months, once they are already in the enclosure together as a group, the relationships and the bonds between between the primates change a lot. Sometimes they are more friends, then they have some fights, they change of other friends. So really we cannot give an answer that can take all the examples, because each integration and each individual is different. So it's a really good question, but this is difficult to answer.
Thank you. Got one last question, and that is, what kind of educational backgrounds do you have in order to do this kind of work?
If Caroline allowed me to start, I just study biology in Spain in the university, and then almost all my background is just working, volunteering in primate sanctuaries, and that's all really.
Yeah, and I got a master's degree in psychology and specialized in primate behavior, did my thesis on that. But other than that, like Alex said, it's been a lot of on-the-job learning. So just by now, I think I have about 23 or 24 years of experience with primates, and for the past 9 it's been at sanctuaries. And you know, I started working at the sanctuaries as a consultant, trying to sort of help where I could with behavioral issues, but I have learned so much from these trips. I learned just about as much as you know, hopefully I give them information. They give me so much. So a lot of it has been just the work experience. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much to Alex and to Caroline for your fascinating stories. And we'll get the videos, as I mentioned, posted so that people can have a chance to really look at them and see how fascinating they really are. The webinar is recorded, so we'll be sending out a link. And I just want to remind you that if you are moved by the work that's going on here, PASA is very grateful for all support. It makes it possible for these animals to have the kind of care that you're seeing and the incredible attention to detail that both Alex and Caroline have been describing. So feel free to donate at pasa.org/donate. Thank you so much, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.